So Justin Trudeau has made a massive oopsie, and at the risk of being accused of coming to his defense, I do think it's a perfect opportunity to discuss a principle in law and how more people should be applying this principle to morality.
Ex post facto laws.
And why they are generally regarded as being unconstitutional and contrary to human rights. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. I do these things called vlogs. They're basically law vlogs, hence vlogs. That's Barney the vlog dog behind me. Barney, come here. Oh my god, you're getting heavy. All right. This is Barney the vlog dog, and this is his Bark Busters training collar. We're training, aren't we? We are. Down you go. For those of you who have been living under a rock in a cave with no internet access, or at the very least for those of you who are not Canadian who have been engrossed with this story for the last 24 hours, a photo has emerged from 2001 of Prime Minister Trudeau, who was not Prime Minister at the time, dressed up like Aladdin and doing everything he could in his power to make himself look like Aladdin, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. What some people find at least equally as offensive, if not more offensive than what Justin Trudeau did to make himself look like Aladdin, is the positioning of his hand in the photograph. In watching this whole story develop, I suspect I might not be the only person who has certain philosophical or moral objections to judging people by current moral standards for things they did back in an era when the moral standards were different. Alright, this is going to be one of many parentheses during this vlog because this is a touchy subject and it does require some nuance in terms of the discussion. There's an expression in law that bad cases make for bad law, and oftentimes one focuses on a bad decision in order to come to the conclusion that the law is broken. Okay, 1, 2, 3, hop. Okay. The question is not so much this particular situation of Justin Trudeau dressed up as Aladdin at this gala at a private school that he was teaching at, because in 2001 I suspect society as a whole was already relatively sensitized to the fact that dressing up and darkening your skin to play a character was not the most culturally sensitive thing one can do. Now, on a personal note, I do think there is something of a distinction to be drawn between darkening your skin, let's just say to portray Aladdin, versus darkening your skin to represent a member of a different race at large. That being said, and whether or not someone finds it particularly offensive that Justin Trudeau was dressing up like Aladdin in 2001, I think we can all agree that as of 2001, there were enough overall sensitivities for people to know that it's not the best idea to do it, and if you do something like that, for right or for wrong, you ought to expect to provoke a certain degree of outrage. Maybe 10 or 20 years earlier, there would have been even less of an expectation for that, but 2001, we're already getting into the era of cultural sensitivities, even if it was by no means anywhere near what it is today, for good or for bad, but that is parentheses number 1 of this video. Let's get back to it, and I'll see you in a few seconds. And reflecting on these philosophical and moral issues that I have with what has basically become mainstream, at the very least political behavior, I said to myself that this whole trend of judging people's past behavior based on current moral standards is about as fair as getting convicted for what is currently a crime but was not a crime at the time the act was committed. And there is a principle in law which prohibits this type of fundamentally contrary to the ends of justice, contrary to the rules of natural justice conduct, for condemning someone for conduct committed in the past when the act was not illegal based on current law which currently prohibits the act. And it's called ex post facto law, and is pretty much contrary to the rules of justice in any legal system. Ex post facto laws are in fact contrary to the European Convention on Human Rights, but let's not get ahead of ourselves first, let's just deal with North America. In the United States, Congress is prohibited from passing ex post facto laws. It's in the Constitution, and let me read that passage for you. Section 9, no bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. And first of all, what is a bill of attainder? Because I didn't know this myself and had to Google it. A bill of attainder is an act of legislator declaring a person or group of persons guilty of some crime and punishing them, often without a trial. So Congress cannot pass legislation declaring an individual or group of people guilty without a trial. Okay, we understand that because it would be fundamentally unjust to be declared guilty of a crime without a trial. That's not what happens in free and democratic societies. And so in a similar vein, Congress can't pass an ex post facto law. And what is an ex post facto law? An ex post facto law is a law that retroactively changes the legal consequences or status of actions that were committed or relationships that existed before the enactment of the law. In criminal law, it may criminalize actions that were legal when committed. It may aggravate a crime by bringing it into a more severe category than it was when it was committed. It may change the punishment prescribed for a crime, as by adding new penalties or extended sentencing. Or it may alter the rules of evidence in order to make conviction for a crime likelier than it would have been when the deed was committed. Some common law jurisdictions do not permit retroactive criminal legislation, though new precedent generally applies to events that occurred before the judicial decision. Ex post facto laws are expressly forbidden by the United States Constitution in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3, and Article 1, Section 10. And what should not come as a surprise to anybody morality is that ex post facto laws are equally unconstitutional in Canada. Article 11, paragraph G of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms reads as follows. Any person charged with an offence has the right not to be found guilty on account of any act or omission unless at the time of the act or omission it constituted an offence under Canadian or international law or was criminal according to the general principles of law recognized by the community of nations. That is the principle as relates to law, and
Why should the principle be any different when it relates to morality?
Now, I know what a lot of you are saying to yourselves right now. Law and morality, they may be similar in some respects, but they are fundamentally different, and nobody's attempting to convict Justin Trudeau of a crime. One is just declaring his conduct immoral. There are a lot of parallels that people can draw between law and morality and the influence of the one on the other. Fundamentally, however, both law and morality evolve as time goes on. Things that were not illegal 20 years ago might be illegal today. I remember growing up, people used to smoke on airplanes. You had your non-smoking section, which was a row of chairs sitting right next to the smoking section. Nowadays, it's illegal to smoke on a plane, but no one would go back and look at everyone who smoked on a plane and gee Louise! Sorry. No one would go back in time and look at everyone who smoked on planes and retroactively give them tickets for doing what was legal then but is now currently illegal. Certainly no one would go back and look at their conduct and declare it immoral in retrospect. The law, social norms, moral norms, they evolve as things go on. They evolve as people's understanding evolve. They evolve with language. They evolve with current political sensitivities. They evolve. They evolve. All right, parentheses number 2. Now, there are some acts which were offensive even at the time and when discovered today should be treated as such. There are other acts which were borderline at the time that with the passage of time and the evolution of morals have become objectively immoral as of the present date. And then there were things which were objectively not immoral at the time and only became immoral over the course of time. And it is those particular types of situations that I'm discussing right now. In terms of applying current rules of morality as to what is immoral today when it was by no means immoral at the time and has only become totally inappropriate in retrospect by applying current rules to past events. Those are the examples we're talking about right now. All right, back to the video. But to the extent that it is obviously and intuitively contrary to the most fundamental rules of law to apply the current law retroactively to acts committed at the time that were not illegal at the time, it seems to me that it should be equally intuitive not to apply current moral standards to acts that were committed in a time when the acts themselves had different moral standing. And at the risk of coming to Justin Trudeau's defense, Justin Trudeau was dressing up like Aladdin for a costume party, and there are very few ways for a Caucasian male to make himself look like Aladdin, or at least the traditional version of Aladdin, without doing certain things to make themselves look like Aladdin. And to me as a lawyer, it seems we're committing the very same injustice by applying current moral standards to past moral acts when they carry different moral weight to them, as applying current criminal law to previous actions when different criminal law applied to those actions, or no criminal law at all applied to those actions. I don't think you need to be a lawyer to share this sentiment and to potentially see the fundamental injustice that is going on as a result of the situation. In fact, I don't think I'm alone in sharing this sentiment whatsoever. All right, and incidentally, politics being what it is, I suspect everyone has seen Scheer's response to Trudeau's incident.
Like all Canadians, I was extremely shocked and disappointed when I learned of Justin Trudeau's actions this evening. Wearing brownface is an act of open mockery and racism. It was just as racist in 2001 as it is in 2019. He's not fit to govern this country.
Politics is a dirty industry, and leave it to your political adversary to exploit the gaffe for all it's worth in terms of political currency. They will do it with no remorse, regardless of whether or not they have even worse skeletons in their closet, because politics is a blood sport. Politicians are like sharks, and when they smell blood in the water, they come in for the kill. All right, back to the video. I actually don't think most people are angry with Justin Trudeau because of the existence of the photograph that has magically resurfaced 2 months before election. I think most people are angrier with Justin Trudeau because of the double standard. The way that this whole injustice has been weaponized by some, but when it comes back to bite them in the butt, all of a sudden context becomes critical. Context for me, but not for thee. And human nature being what it is, people tend to only appreciate the potential injustice of their previous actions when the similar injustice is imposed on them. Do I think it was racist of Justin Trudeau to dress like that? Racism as a moral crime has to have the two elements of an actual crime, the actus reus and the mens rea. We've discussed this in previous videos, but in criminal law, when one commits a crime, they have to commit the act and they have to have the intent. As far as I am concerned, racism is itself a moral crime that requires both of those elements to be met as well. The actus reus is in the act of having committed... Hey guys, stop barking. The actus reus as in the act of having committed the racist act, and the mens rea meaning the intent to have committed an act of racism. I think a lot of people, when looking at the media outrage over Justin Trudeau's 2001 photograph, I think more people are outraged probably because Justin Trudeau and others have weaponized this very tool and used it against others, and now expect a double standard and context when they are themselves at the eye of the storm. The eye of the storm. Opening another parenthesis, that and the fact that apparently multiple other images of Justin Trudeau doing similarly offensive things at earlier stages of his life have just resurfaced, so this seems to be part and parcel of a pattern and not a one-off. Regardless, this vlog is not about this one particular example, it is about the general habit of applying current moral standards to actions in the past which themselves carry different moral weight at that particular point in time. Justin Trudeau has stepped in it big time, and you know darn well that Andrew Scheer is going to milk it for all it's worth politically, until the day, of course, when a picture pops out of nowhere of Andrew Scheer and then he has to contextualize why it's different with him than with others, if that ever happens. I'm not picking on any one of these politicians in particular. I think there are a great many people who have these types of things hanging around in their closets, and when you get into politics, expect them to be used against you, because all is fair in love, war, and politics. Back to the video. But applying the rules of natural justice, it is fundamentally unjust to convict someone today of an act which they committed in the past when that act in the past was not illegal. The lawyer in me says that the same principle should apply to morality, and I think the inner lawyer of society at large is beginning to feel the same way. That is the vlog. I hope you like this. If you like this content, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section, and share my channel with someone who you think would like this. And now you know your vlog. Peace out.